Hello and welcome to Türkiye Talks. Turkey is heading to historic elections. When it comes to elections, all elections are historic. Don't you think so, Kadir?
Absolutely.
all the time this is being said, but this is also important because for the next 5 years, which leader will lead Turkey, what kind of parliament will we have? So we are going to learn this Sunday night, as we have only a few days remaining for the actual vote. How do you see this situation? Do you have any predictions before the elections? We left a very important time for rallies, political meetings, statements, manifestos. So everything now almost behind us. So what do you make of it from when you look at the especially election campaigns?
Well, Bora, we are going through really busy times. It's really hard to even watch the news, keep up with the news coming out of Turkey, especially in Turkish, of course. And there have been many developments, and this election is very close between the two parties, it seems. This wasn't the case over the summer. A lot of people were actually saying that basically Erdogan era is over and the opposition is going to succeed this time around, given the economic situation in the country, the high inflation, and the supply chain issues and others economically. Turkey was not doing that well, and it is still struggling, of course, with high prices, and that's a general phenomenon around the world. But inside Turkey, inflation is being felt higher than a lot of countries. I'm not an economist, so that's a difficult debate, and I don't think we have enough time to go into that debate. But the bottom line I was trying to get at is the fact that President Erdogan is still strong, and his incumbency, his party's organization, his party still, AK Party, holds millions and millions of members. In the last couple weeks especially, they have made a big push, and elections are around the world actually, won by going to the people who are going to vote, talking to them on the street, convincing them one-on-one. That's what it comes down to. Media, YouTube channels, TV channels can be very influential. There's no doubt about that, especially in this day and age. But AK Party has that advantage, that it has millions of members who are mobilized in the recent weeks. And like you mentioned, there was this huge rally over the weekend in Istanbul. There were actually two rallies. Saturday, there was the opposition rally, and then Sunday, the AK Party's rally. Of course, AK Party's rally was really huge. I mean, the official number they're giving is more than 1.7 million people there. So I can't judge how many people were there, but it was definitely a show of strength on the part of President Erdogan. The campaigns basically are show a lot of the opinion polls we are looking at are showing a very close race. Common wisdom several weeks ago was also that this would go to the second round. Past couple days, I think, Bora, you're seeing that as well in Turkey, that a lot of people are talking maybe this will end in the first round because those two candidates, Ince and Ogan, are not quite making the big splash that they were hoping, that some of their support diminished in recent days and weeks. So it's a very close race. That's why some would argue that it is one of the most difficult, perhaps, elections that President Erdogan has ever faced. But he's been through many, many elections, as you know, very historic ones, and you know, he's emerged victorious. So there's that almost aura of invincibility, and that's kind of important in politics. It's important in convincing your supporters, convincing people that you will still prevail, you will still win. So that's the positive things for the you know, ruling party. But the opposition has put up a relatively strong fight, because for a long time people had lost hope in the opposition. Today, many people see divisions in the opposition, right? Too many partners of the opposition saying different things. They have issues within themselves, but some, you know, opposition supporters see unity and coming together, etc. So it's going to be a very interesting election at the end of the day. I don't want to keep this too long, because Bora, you're in Turkey, so you're feeling all of this much better. I should interview you today more.
Yeah, I mean, yes, maybe we should talk about the voting behavior and possibility of change. This is the question that I receive mostly. Do we expect a change? Especially if you look at the Western media, as you have said, many are focusing of the possibility that Erdogan, the president, may lose this time. You know, as a journalist and as an analyst, I think it's been almost 25 years or 30 years that I've been following elections here and there in Turkey, in other places as well. When I look at the voting behavior in Turkey, I don't expect a big change actually, because most people, they are voting according to their ideology, their ethnic background or religious background, beliefs, and traditionally, a family votes for a certain party in general in Turkey. That's why if you look at the last 3-4 elections, you don't see much change. You know, as you mentioned, you know, there is a global economic crisis. Turkey is experiencing its part from this economic situation, high prices, inflation. This is a fact. So after 20 years of government, it is not an ideal situation for a party, for a leader to go to the elections. Yep. But despite the fact that President Erdogan's party, the AK party, AK party, is still in, according to the polls, even the polls of the companies which are affiliated with the opposition, they say they are talking about over 35, maybe nearly 40% of AK votes are still there. When you look at the main opposition, for example, you in another place, maybe you could expect a big rise, big jump in their vote, but it is still in 24s, 25s. So you see very slight changes in voting. Nationalist Movement Party, it's one of the oldest in Turkey. They have a political base, so it doesn't change much. So when you look at from this perspective, you don't expect a big change. That's why the president is trying to consolidate his side. So when you look at Turkish public, the voters, over 65% is right-wing. They are voting for either nationalist, right-wing parties, those who care about religion, Muslim parties. So he needs to get 51 out of this 65. So that's why he's trying to consolidate. And as you have mentioned, the Istanbul meeting in the last Sunday before the elections, he brought nearly 2 million people. I was there as an observer, and I've seen flood of people. Even we have seen a big photo of the square.
Yeah.
The people there were not stable, so it was a moving like waves. So some people were coming in, some people were going out.
Yeah, I heard a lot of people couldn't even reach the area.
Yeah, it's near my home actually, and the traffic was stuck. Literally, you couldn't move. So it shows that the president was successful to, as you said, energize, mobilize his side, consolidating, and also what he has done in the past 5 years. The opening of Hagia Sophia as a mosque again. Building a mosque in Taksim Square, building warships, jets, airplanes, etc. So these are motivating people, nationalist people, devoted Muslim people, practicing Muslim people. It touches the honor of Turkish nation. So I think he's consolidating. But on the other hand, I don't know if I'm talking longer than I should, but
No.
Yeah, to complete my analysis, if you look at the situation of the opposition, Kilicdaroglu, the main opposition, he's from the left wing, and the left wing's votes in Turkey is not over 30-35% of the people. So he needs to get votes from the other side. That's why he's trying to widen its reach, bringing Muslim parties into his coalition, nationalist parties, etc. But it is difficult. When you do that, it creates problem in your base, actually. So he's having this difficulty. So from this point of view, I think what is important right now, the vote of the newcomers, those who will vote for the first time, the young people. That's why both party leaders, I mean, even the other contenders, Muharrem İnce and Sinan, they are aiming to get votes from the young people. But I think in their vote as well, it's being distributed proportionally. So we cannot say all the young people will vote for this party or that party. I think it will be spread proportionally as well. So from this point of view, actually, I don't expect a big change in Turkish political life, but we will see after a few days. I don't know, this makes sense for you.
Absolutely. I think you pointed out some important trends, important realities, Bora, because the opposition, the main, who decides who gets power in Turkey? Yes, center right and right politics, conservatives, and, like you said, center left and left, maybe 35%, So that's why CHP, the opposition, when they got together, they included some, former AK party leaders who had just set up their own parties, under the leaderships of Ali Babacan and Ahmet Davutoğlu, and Temel Karamollaoğlu, who is not a former AK party, but who is more religious, of a religious parties, conservative party. So the idea was that the opposition could attract center-right and perhaps even some of AK party's voters to its side, given the economic conditions. But that there is, it's not. I don't think they have been able to do that convincingly. We are seeing that in the polls. Those parties are not, garnering huge support. It's not clear if they're able to contribute to the opposition's votes in a big way. And the two main partners in that opposition coalition remain CHP and İyi Party, the good party. So their votes are not enough, of course, to prevail, to reach 51%. And given the consolidation that you just mentioned, AK Party, there were people who were saying they were undecided, although they had voted for AK Party regularly. In the past several weeks and couple of months, actually, especially after Kilicdaroglu's candidacy was declared, I think a lot of them gradually returned back to AK Party. It's hard for those people to bring themselves to vote for CHP or Kilicdaroglu, even though the opposition is not only about CHP and only about Kilicdaroglu. It is supposed to represent a larger sort of combination of opposition groups, and they tried to show that picture on last Saturday's rally in Istanbul. But as you know, that was a much smaller rally, and that it's not clear to me that they were able to give they were able to show kind of a big support or show of strength in Istanbul. Why do we always do these things in Istanbul? I mean, Istanbul is the financial and capital of Turkey on so many levels, except the official capital is Ankara, of course. Istanbul is very important.
It's big, yeah. The population is very big, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, something like 15+ million people and so many voters, and they impact other cities and what other major cities do as well. So Istanbul is not only about Istanbul itself. So it's very important. And, President Erdogan started out his, career as a politician as the mayor of Istanbul. That was a huge victory in 1994. That's when I started college, actually. So that year, it was a big victory, and he built his political legacy based upon that. So Istanbul has always been important for him and for Turkish politics. So it's very significant. Within a matter of 24 hours, you have two major rallies in Istanbul, one the opposition and one the ruling party. So we'll see what the voters say on Sunday, of course, right? The rallies are important to show force, show conviction, show unity, show solidarity, consolidation, etc. But at the end of the day, there's some 64 million, voters in Turkey, and I am expecting a huge turnout. I mean, this has been a very, very sort of interesting campaign in that sense. Nobody seems convinced about, one side will easily win. So I think people will show up. I think will be over 90% participation. Maybe I'm exaggerating, but close. It will be close. I think somewhere between 85 and 90 for sure, if not more. So we'll see. But this is, what you mentioned also, I wanted to say something about parties, party ID, party membership, party discipline in Turkey. Political party discipline is very strong. So people who have voted at least, couple times for a party, they tend to vote for that party again. And like you said, I understand your perspective when you say you don't see a lot of change, although there's been a lot of campaigning and a lot of things happened over the past couple of months. People do want to sort of go back to where they feel most, where they most identify with. And that may make those undecided numbers even more important, because when you add up the math, math says if you combine all the opposition, they should prevail. But math doesn't quite work in the same way in politics, and people will look at the figures in front of them, right? President Erdogan, Kilicdaroglu, İnce, and Ogan, and sorry, I made this too long, but the opposition parties, among them, there are people who will not necessarily vote for the opposition candidate, and that is less true for AK Party, right? AK Party people voting for Erdogan, or MHP, the Nationalist Party, voting for Erdogan, those percentages are higher than the opposition's support for Kilicdaroglu. So that kind of makes things close to each other in that sense.
Yeah.
But you mentioned media. Let me ask you about media, Bora. You're a journalist of so many years, and a lot of, especially outside the country, there is this perspective about, after the elections, if the opposition wins, it's going to be much better for freedom of speech and freedom of, expression. The media will be better, etc. We'll have more freedoms. Maybe you can say a couple words on that.
Well, I mean, when it comes to freedom of press in Turkey, I think it is not portrayed in a right way in the West, especially because in Turkey, when you look at televisions, when you look at news websites, when you look at papers, you will see a really very different voices. And since, I mean, President Erdogan was elected 5 years ago. Since then, you see and you read and you hear lots of heavy criticisms, even going beyond journalism. So we have maybe more than 20 notable news televisions. We have tens of big and maybe hundreds of national and local papers, and maybe thousands of websites, and all of them are doing their coverage as they wish. Yes, we can say the mainstream is not so strong as was in the past, but it is not something about Turkey. It's like all over the world. Everybody is now going and watching and listening to their own papers or televisions. This is same in Turkey. You have pro-government networks, you have pro-opposition networks, you have, as I said, tens of different opinions. So I see no problem in that regard. There are some people who are in prison, and in the West they are portrayed as journalists, but when you look at them, they are either pro-PKK, PKK affiliates, or other terror groups, or the people from the FETÖ organization, who did the 15th of July coup attempt. So it's not as well it is portrayed in the Western media, and this is all political. It's also reflecting the political divide in Turkey. We can say that if you look at, you were talking about the alliances, different political parties. When we look at that, it's like in the media, in politics, we have two dividing lines. One is the stand against the PKK, the problem of terror in Turkey, and the other is the personality of the president. Because when you look at, for example, the ruling alliance, we call Cumhur or Nations People's Alliance. If you look at the parties, you have a nationalist party, and if you look at the Nations Alliance, the opposition alliance, you have E-Party. So these two parties are nationalists. Actually, the two alliances are composed of mirror parties. You have MHP in the governing alliance, and you have E party. Both of them are allegedly nationalists, because E party, they say they are nationalists, but when it comes to their stand with the PKK affiliated HDP party, their stand is different. Also, they're opposing the president. When you look at, for example, two new parties, former ministers of AK Party, DEVA and Gelecek Future Party, so they are actually mirroring AK Party, the ruling party. So what is the divide between these two is the personality of the president, if you are supporting him or not. When you look at, for example, Muslim parties, you have Yeniden Refah, the new welfare party, which is led by late Erbakan's son, Fatih Erbakan. So it's the mirror of Saadet Party in the opposition alliance. So the divide, when you look at this, is about the personality of the president or their stand with the HDP. So I think this divide is also reflected in the media, and all of the parties, all of the politicians, they are actually working in line with these media groups. So I think this will be reflected on the elections as well.
You're right, Bora. Actually, at the beginning, it looked like it was only AK party and MHP, the ruling party and nationalist party together, and then all the opposition against them. And then the opposition included some, conservative parties as well as former AK party parties. But President Erdogan made some moves to ensure the kind of equivalency you're talking about, or mirroring image, right? He convinced a new welfare party to join his coalition. He also, included the Kurdish Conservative Party on his side, and those basically who would say in the name of the opposition that, hey, you can, if you're a conservative, our doors are open to you, or if you're an Islamist, our doors are open to you, or if you're a Kurdish person, our doors are open to you. President Erdogan was able to kind of make those arguments weaker by, enlarging his front, his alliance as well. So I think that had an impact on the People's Alliance being able to gradually increase its support, or at least consolidate its support, to keep this race really, really close. For the opposition, the pro-PKK parties' support has been troubling, and that's been probably costing them a lot of votes. And the People's Alliance has used that in a very strong way. President Erdogan in his rallies are talking about how voting for the opposition would actually mean relief for PKK, and sort of loosening or relaxing the fight against terror groups like PKK. So it's a very tough campaign. We are only in the last couple days, and we'll see if this goes to second round. Second round will be on May 28th, if it goes to that. But just past couple days, I think you would agree with that the feeling is that it may not go to the second round. People are really consolidating, coalescing around either Erdogan or Kilicdaroglu, and this might end, this race might end this Sunday, actually.
Yeah.
Maybe last word should be yours about post-election, right? What happens if AK Party wins, and then what happens if, I should say AK Party will win. We know that it will be the #1 party, as a party. But if President Erdogan wins, what happens? And then if Kilicdaroglu wins, what happens?
I think this is a very important question, and it also shows us the strength of Turkish democracy. I think first we should highlight and underline this, because despite the black propaganda in some media outlets, people in Turkey believe that they can make change with their votes, and this is same for both opposition and the ruling party. We have seen President Erdogan is working very hard to, convince people that he will keep working. He's explaining what he has done so far, his mega infrastructure projects, roads, bridges, airports, etc. He's showing what he has done, and he's proud of what he has done so far. Also, he's making promises. He's delivering some of his promises, early retirement, new jobs to people, etc. So he's using all the legitimate political elements to win the elections. At the same time, if you look at the opposition, they brought a big coalition. 6+ parties came together because they believe that they can take the president down, and they are very eager for that. They are making rallies. Istanbul and Ankara mayors are also part of the campaign of the main opposition leader. So I think also you mentioned the turnout. As you said, maybe 90% of the voters will go and vote. This is, I think, the highest number in Europe, which shows that people believe in democracy. So whatever the result is, I think Turkey will continue its way. If the president wins, I think Turkey's policies of being an independent player in the Western Security Alliance, but talking with other countries, Russia and others, kind of a mediating role between East and West will continue. Of course, lots of problems we have around Turkey, in Syria, in Iraq, Libya, etc. But many big problems now being resolved. If you look at the war against terror, Turkey has made a great achievement in that. So I think if you look at the last few years of President Erdogan's rule, he normalized Turkey's relations with Middle Eastern countries, Egypt, Israel, UAE, Saudi Arabia. So I think more diplomacy will continue from Turkey's point of view. When we look at the opposition, if they win, we don't know, we don't see a clear foreign policy agenda. Only thing that we know that the ties with Syria will be, mended. Already the current government is doing that, but probably they will be more prone to Western influence, actually. But we will see. But as my final word, I think these elections will show whole world that people of Turkey believes in democracy. They believe in their vote, and they know that they can make change with their votes. I think this is the most important thing.
Bora, as we say in Turkish, may the most auspicious thing outcome happen, right? Like, it's a bit of a tautology, but whatever happens in the end, we hope that it's going to be auspicious and good for Turkey. And like you said, people will go to polls in big numbers, and that definitely shows Turkish people's belief in that ballot box, and the outcome will be hopefully good for the country in either way.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bora.
Comments. So hopes to see you next time after the elections.